Go.
You're live on Feedback Friday.
It's time for Feedback Friday. And for someone with a diminished lung capacity, hello, friends. Hello, patrons. Hello, subscribers. It's time for Feedback Friday. Feeling good. Hope y'all are too. And do you know why I'm feeling good? Because y'all are here with me. Welcome, welcome, welcome to Feedback Friday. Got a lot to talk about on the show today, and y'all are going to help me make it happen. Before we get into the question of why Bill has all these old books in front of him, let's say hello. And the chat is blowing up. Blowing up. Wow. Craziness. Craziness. Let's see who's in the mix right now. Tricky Troy, Scotty Marish, Oh Great. Oh Great Bearded One. Oh Great Bearded One in the house. Nicholas Holmes. Yes, yes. Mark Gump, my friend, welcome back. Good to see you all in this mix. Yes, yes. Nat Cat, Annie Adams, Bradley Hall. All of my friends are here in the chat. Alexander, hello, hello. Bradley, good to see you. Same as well. Brittany's here. Hey, Britt, how's it going? Let me take a look at what's going on. Oh, you guys are already throwing into the Coke Zero fun. Well indeed. Well indeed. Indeedly do. Man, this Jacinto, hey, welcome. Good to see you here. Greater Goods here. Mushu, thank you. Cheers. Mushu's here. Rymore, good to see you. A lot of patrons in the house. Hey, Jordan's on. Probably in class. That's fine. Ann Adams, thank you as well for contributing to the Coke Zero Fund. Jared is here. Raiden made manibide. Raiden. So let's see. Misfits here. Brendan's here. Leonis is here. Cindy is here. Jacinto. Colum is here. Hello, my friend from across the Watas. Carvin is here. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about. Panzer's here. Carnadius is here. I think I'm caught up. There we go. Tricky Troy. Thank you, sir. Jacinto found another Smurf house and tried making it into a mud hut. Cool. Send me a picture. I want to see how that turns out. I miss crafting. All right, so a lot to talk about, guys. In the world of tabletop gaming, in the world of our shows, in the world of conventions, and then, as my title suggested, we're going to talk about all the other things too. D&D stories, and if we have time for it, I'm going to delve into the past and explore a little bit about old role-playing games and my thoughts on how old isn't necessarily bad. Sometimes they made them right. Sometimes they didn't, and sometimes they made them right. So I'm going to start off with this. I saw The Joker last weekend. Now, I'm not going to give you guys any spoilers, okay? But I'm going to say this. You all know that, in my nerdly pursuits, I enjoy books, movies, TV shows, of course, tabletop role-playing games, and comics. Now, I've always been more of a Marvel Comics person than a DC Comics person, but I'm also not hardline. I'm not like one or the other. Okay. So, however, I have a friend whose name is Jim, who is a man of intense fandom with very specific things. So, for example, he is a huge Kiss fan, like probably one of the biggest Kiss fans that I've ever known. He is also a huge DC Comics fan. So when I sent Jim a text message saying, hey, man, do you want to go see the Joker? His response to me was kind of shocking, actually. It was like, I'm not going to go see that hunk of crap. It's not true to the comics. It's not even a real Joker movie, blah, blah, blah. So he was part of that group of people who are really hardline about DC Comics and the Batman lore and the canon, and he wasn't very happy with how things were looking with this new Joker movie. So I suggested that we go see it anyway, and we did. We went into that movie, and people, I'm going to tell you now, not just from a comic book fan standpoint, but the Joker is a superb film. It is a masterpiece of cinema. If Joaquin Phoenix doesn't win some kind of Academy Award for his performance in this movie, I will be shocked. I might even protest, because I thought that this film was incredible. Now, again, with no spoilers, I'm just going to tell you, I don't think that Joker is a superhero movie. I don't think it would qualify as a superhero movie. I think it is a psychological thriller. And here to join me to talk about Joker is none other than our very own Jack O'Brien, everybody. Jackie's back visiting from college. You guys might remember Jack from one episode of the B Team, but probably more importantly from almost every production of season 3 of D&D with high school students.
That is true.
From a legend of the cast of the crew, rather, of GaryCon 2019. You may have seen some of the pictures that I've posted on social media with Jack being on the crew, in the same room as like Matthew Mercer and Luke Gygax and Joe Manganiello.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, Jack, I think you were like personally, didn't you like kind of feel up Matt Mercer as you were like adjusting his microphone?
I can't confirm or deny it.
Yeah, so.
But I heard you were talking about
everybody's
Joker.
saying, hey, Jack. Yeah, so
I saw Joker last night, actually.
No spoilers, Jack.
No spoilers.
As a person who can appreciate cinema, what do you have to say about this film?
It's a good film. Very, very good film. I mean, I think it's not a typical like superhero kind of comic film.
No.
But besides that, it's just a good film by itself.
It's like a psychological drama. It's
super. I mean, like, I think the one thing it does is it's a very, very good like examination of the psyche of Joker as a character.
Yes,
and it's incredibly well done.
It is deeply well done from a technical perspective. The way that they shoot it, the way that they edit it, the way that they tell the story is incredible. The cinematography at times can be disorienting because I feel like they were visually mirroring the slow motion mental breakdown of this character.
Yeah.
Jack, you are also very aware of sound and the importance of sound. Talk a little bit about what they did to your brain cells with that soundtrack.
I mean, even from the beginning with the trailers, like that, the version of Smile that they used was just like absurdly good. It was amazing.
And when we say soundtrack, there's that Scorsese kind of vibe where they play like cool songs that everybody knows. But that's not necessarily what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the eerie, deeply psychological, disturbing soundscape that took place, that permeated this film. And it was, when I say eerie, man, like, I'm not sure if I've ever left a movie theater feeling anxiety. Like, I had anxiety.
That's the thing. I was talking with one of my friends right after seeing it, and of course, I think Heath Ledger's performance in The Dark Knight as Joker was like impeccable. It was amazing. But how I feel different with this version of Joker is this version of Joker, I feel like more scared. Not necessarily scared, but just like
Right. I don't want to say.
can-
I think people who see Joker assume that this is some superhero movie. It's not. It's a drama. It's
definitely psychological.
psychological thriller, maybe even horror in some fashion, in a mentally disturbing way.
Yeah.
There's horror elements.
No, this version of Joker is definitely more. How do I say it? Kind of.
It's
Like
disturbing.
it is.
It's disturbing.
Extremely. I mean, the laugh especially is.
I've never
incredibly
felt
creepy.
chills from someone's performance like that.
Yeah.
Like, and you know how sometimes people take their kids to see superhero movies and they're like, because it's like PG-13 and their kid's 10 and they're like, oh, it'll be fine. Don't do that with
No.
your kids. You will F them up and they'll need to go to therapy
Yeah.
forever. This movie is not made for kids. I want to say that one more time. Do not take little kids to this movie.
There were some scenes where I had to even. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah. It's brutal, man. It's brutal. But if you have the stomach for it, I cannot recommend enough going to see Joker. Now, how do I seg that way into Feedback Friday? Because I think it's an amazing character study. And sometimes when we talk about D&D and other role-playing games, we talk about fleshing out amazing characters. And that's a deep character, dude. Like,
Yeah.
that movie is basically a background story for a role-playing game character that was turned into a movie. It's epic.
I agree.
It's epic.
Very good movie.
It's a study in, people and culture. It's a reflection of
Society.
And
Really.
it
Class system.
yeah, I mean, in a way, while it is really a background story movie for Joker, it also, in a way, by juxtaposition, by contrast, it explains the origin story of Batman.
Yeah.
And I don't know. So anyway, back to the original story. We go see this movie, me and my friend Jim, who's the diehard DC fan, who went into it with a very closed mind. We walked out without words. We got all the way outside of the movie theater, and I turned to look at him. He looked at me at the same time, and he was like, dude, I'm ruined. He's like, that movie was unbelievable. This coming from a very stubborn, best friend of mine, but extremely stubborn person who rarely changes his mind. And he walked out of that movie, a diehard DC fan who was against it, walked out as a believer. So I think if you are down to see a movie that will challenge you to think and maybe even fill you with anxiety, you should go see Joker.
And one thing I'd like to touch on more of the character really is that he's somewhat the protagonist of the
Yeah.
film, but unlike a typical protagonist, you don't fully feel like an attachment. You don't fully feel like, yeah, I like this guy. He's a good guy.
But
You're not-
it's weird
that's not-
because you know that this is the Joker. You know that he's going to do bad things. But in this movie, you're almost sympathetic.
exactly.
You kind of feel sorry for
which
him.
is like it's definitely very difficult to do from a writing standpoint to really portray a protagonist as not necessarily like a good guy, but someone that people can kind of like empathize with and connect with.
Yeah. It's a great study in film and cinema, but also from a character development standpoint and an ambiance standpoint, this is inspirational for role-playing games. If you ever decide to play a really kind of dark tone role-playing game, this is an inspiration piece because the way that they did the music, how they used sound to create like kind of a mental soundscape that's almost disturbing and fills you with a sense of impending dread is a masterpiece. And if you could achieve that in your role-playing game, you're going deep. You're going into the deep end. It's some deep stuff. So
All right.
that's our little thing about the Joker.
It was great to be here.
It was good
Great
to see
be
you
here.
again, buddy.
Yeah.
Jack and Karoff and I had lunch. So
Yeah.
the fans miss you, Jack. Hopefully over Christmas break you'll come back for a D&D one shot, and we'll get a bunch of you guys together and have you roll dice and kick ass.
Yeah, it'll come soon.
All right, see you, Jack.
See ya.
So fans, the Joker, again, just to recap, amazing film. Those of you who have seen it may or may not disagree. Don't be bashful about posting your comments, although, good Lord, this chat's blowing up. Blowing up. I don't even know where to start to get caught up. Heather. Oh, Mushu asked about Heather. So Heather dropped out of college. You guys might remember Heather from seasons 1 and season 2. She dropped out of college and immediately started working and developing a network of contacts in the Chicago film industry here. And now Heather is working. She's a working film artist. So she does hair and makeup, and she does special effects makeup and art department, props, that kind of stuff. And actually, I don't know if I can spill the tea about this yet, but Heather has been working on the crew for a new TV show that's been in production in Chicago. And she's been doing really cool stuff with it, like, wounds and special effects makeup and stuff like that. So I'm super excited to have Heather come back for one of the Feedback Fridays to talk with you guys. And hopefully we might even be able to show you some pictures and clips from some of the stuff. But, I'm very proud because, Heather, even though she quit film school, she didn't give up on her dreams. And now, she's working her way up. So it's good. Heather's good. All right. Let me see. Oh, Heather's on the chat. See, so Heather just filled everyone in. I just filled everyone in on your life, Heather. Okay, it's fine. Hey, Chris Dorsano. There's Chris Dorsano, one of our good friends from True Focus Productions. Yeah, so you guys are blowing up in the chat. I can't go through every one of these, otherwise this is going to be like a 7-hour show. Heather, you are always welcome to visit. So next Friday, come by at 1 o'clock for Feedback Friday. And come talk with the fans because they miss you. DOD, my man, you made it. Greater Goods here. Oh my God, there's too many.
DOD.
Crawfa says hi. Marvelous
Hello, DOD.
Mutterings. Jack says hi, DOD. Okay, so the first bit of this show, talking about Joker, but if you're just tuning in, I wanted to do a couple updates about the shows. So you guys have seen that the last 10 days has been just cranking out videos. We have been super busy, as you can imagine. I'm very proud, actually. I hope you guys have seen the Meet the Cast videos. And I'm very proud because the girls did those themselves. I told them that I wanted them to produce short videos to kind of like give you guys some insight into, their experience so far or what they're looking forward to in the campaign and the season and kind of the questions they have. So I'm very proud. I think they did a great job with the Meet the Cast videos. Hopefully we'll have more of those coming. I have every intention of having Jenny and Jordan produce a series with the cast so that you guys can meet the rest of the cast and get to know them a little bit better. You guys are being very supportive of Heather. and DOD says, hi, Karofa. Hello, Jack. Greater Good is back. It's been a while since he caught the live stream. Well, you know what? Welcome back, all of you guys. It's awesome to have everybody here. So a couple things. You guys have probably by now seen the first episode of season 4. And by now you've realized that that group is the Vixens. I want to give credit where it's due. So it took us a significant amount of time to produce that opening sequence, and Carafa is 100% responsible for that masterpiece. I did pick out the music, but and I came up with the concept, but I wanted to do something special and different for this season. We've never really done an opening sequence like that, and we thought it would be cool to do. So we spent a lot of time putting it together, but I'm really proud of the work that Carafa did. It came out awesome, and I feel like it captures the excitement that I feel this group is going to have. So the first episode is done. The second episode is done. So we will have another episode. We're going to be on track to have regularly scheduled episodes coming out for you guys. And that's probably the biggest relief for me, is that we finally got schedules in so that we can play on a regular basis. That has always been the hardest part. You guys know that there were times in season 2 and season 3 where we were like off for 3 weeks without an episode. And most of that comes down to scheduling with the kids. So really, the biggest part of what I'm excited about is just the regularity that you guys are going to have with the shows. We're going to have some awesome games coming up. I think the next episode I think is a big contrast to the Vixens, because it's a different group. It's a different chemical makeup. And if you guys watch the Session 0 stuff, where you got to meet Virginia and DJ and Andrea, you'll see that they're different people, and there's a different kind of chemistry. So I think it's all good. Like, everything's starting to come together. So I'm so excited. And, I feel like I can finally talk a little bit about it. I'm not going to spoil anything, but all this enthusiasm that I've had to bottle up now is finally coming out.
Enthusiasm. We're so
It's
excited.
Say hi.
Oh my
It's
God,
Amanda,
I
everybody.
can't wait. Hi. Nice to see you
And
guys.
Jenny.
What's up?
Come on in for Feedback Friday.
Feedback
So,
Friday.
Feedback Friday, we're live.
Wonderful. Hey.
So yeah, it's very exciting. And with our regular schedule, we'll be able to produce episodes, and you guys will have fresh episodes every week. And it'll be awesome. So I think the other thing too is that the approach is a little different. So you guys might have noticed that I didn't do as much backstory, and the reason for that is because we're going to be filming these flashback sessions for the characters. Now, some of the flashback sessions are going to be individual, where it's like one, me and one player, and we run this flashback session. And then sometimes it'll be groups if the characters were grouped up together. So like you might see a flashback session of where, how Jordan's Goliath cleric met DJ's Goliath barbarian. And so you might understand what their relationship is more. But that kind of backstory stuff, we're going to shoot flashback episodes and then roll them in midweek prior to an episode. And the goal with that is to kind of make it a little bit more enticing for you guys to get the reveal. In other words, to be able to get like the backstory. So that'll be kind of that's a new thing that we're trying.
Also,
Come on in, Jenny. You have to.
We're working a lot. Jordan just sent you all our new character portraits for the Dusa gang.
Yeah.
2 halves.
So there's new art for the Medusas. Jordan did the art for the other 3 new players. So you guys will see that next week when that episode drops. And then also, as we hinted at, Jenny's cooking show, which we're not going to tell you the name right now, but trust me when I say it's awesome. Jenny's working on the edit for that first couple bits of that. And then we're shooting another one. So that'll be kind of cool in October to have that. So that's all content that is coming through in the month of October. So regular episodes, like clockwork, every Friday. plus these flashback episodes that we're going to start shooting later next week. So you'll have these little flashback episodes that reveal more about the characters and how they met and how, their backstory stuff. And also, just from a DM level, there will be secrets revealed to the players that their characters will know about by me during their individual flashback sessions that other people in the party might not know. So you guys will kind of take this omniscient perspective as you learn about the character backgrounds. All right, so that's kind of a little bit of an update on the season 4 jams and the shows and the special projects. Everybody's saying hi, Jenny.
Have you hinted about the Halloween yet?
Okay, we're gonna do that right now since you're here.
right.
Pull up a chair. So here's the scoop, people. This year for Halloween, we're gonna do something that we've never done before. And here's what it is. We are going to do a Halloween horror live stream. We are going to do a special one-shot horror live stream on Halloween night, starting at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. We will have an event posted, so you guys will have a link to be able to go to it. And we're going to try to go all out. We're talking about special lighting, props, skulls, candles, the blood of our enemies, all of it. Costumes.
Yeah.
So
It's very special because I believe it's the first D&D with high school students thing that is actually DM'd by a high school student.
Right. Now, for this episode, for this one-shot Halloween live stream extravaganza, Jordan is going to be running Call of Cthulhu. So, which is, if you don't know what Call of Cthulhu is, and you're maybe interested in horror role-playing, this is the granddaddy of horror role-playing games. Some people would say that games like Chill or Cult are better. I'm not here to say what's better. All I know is that we're going to be playing modern-day Call of Cthulhu. Jordan has a great storyline set up, and I think you guys are going to like it because we're going to put some extra production effort into it. So the goal is to do this horror live stream and play from 9 p.m. to midnight and have a nice 3-hour live stream thing. And you guys will be able to be interactive with this. So I'm going to establish, once we set up the video event, in the description, I'll have information about how you can interact with the game. So, for example, for a certain amount of a super chat donation, you'll be able to buy a reroll for the player of your choice. For another level of a donation, you can buy another benefit. And then there will be different levels of donation. So basically, there will be 4 different levels of donations where if you want to affect the game, you'll be able to do that. And it's not going to be crazy expensive, okay? But at the same time, we don't want somebody to be like, oh, it's only $1? Here's 20 rerolls for Jenny. So we want the game to flow. We don't want it to be crazy. And really the point isn't so much for this live stream to make money. It's for us to have fun and for you guys to be able to participate and interact in a live stream environment. So that's kind of the cool jam that we're planning on to kind of finish out the month of October. But like I said, it's gonna be an amazing month. We've got episodes coming every Friday with regularity. Jenny's cooking show is going to be coming out, and that's all going to be awesome. So we're excited about that stuff. What else? Oh, one of you great fans and patrons ponied up for some money for us to get some minis. So I'm excited. We'll the next time I meet up with everybody, we'll have some new minis to look at for them. And if there's time, what we might do is actually do a video of them painting their minis. So the idea would be like Jenny would work with them and help them learn how to paint their minis and, kind of be coaching them. And we would just set up a little workshop here with the paints and the brushes and the minis. So that might be kind of a funny little side video for us to do, sort of like a Crafty Thursday thing, where they come in and just paint their new minis. So that'll be another thing that we have to do. So we got a full plate. All right, let's see what the fans have going on. Yes, the flashback shows should be really cool. Oh, great bearded one. Lots more episodes on the way, Istvan. Dungeons and Dining. Yes, it totally is Dungeons and Dining. Let's see. Let's see what we have here. $100 for immortality. That would be possible, Brittany. But you know, with Cthulhu, there's other factors besides just like hit points too. So maybe at one pledge level, you buy a reroll for a sanity loss roll, so that somebody doesn't lose their mind, you know, or some kind of other method. So I'm going to actually work with Jordan and look at the new Cthulhu rule set, which is she picked up at Gen Con, and we're going to figure out what appropriate, you know, perks there are for you guys to be able to interact and kind of have an impact directly. But those are cool ideas. Phobias, yeah. Yeah, Ann Adams, this stream is very much going to be like the Gygax house thing. It's something that we're going to try to do and, you know, just have some fun with, because so many of you guys have said, when are you guys going to play other games besides just D&D? So this is going to be our shot at doing Cthulhu, and who knows, if it's fun, if it works out, maybe we'll make it like a monthly thing where we have a monthly live stream of a Cthulhu campaign. So you never know. I'm not going to make any promises, but it's certainly a possible thing. Let's see.
Yeah. And I know Bill always interacts with you guys and keeps up with your comments, but everyone else here, all the players, me and Jordan especially, we all keep up with what you guys are saying and what your innovation. So even if I know a lot of times our contact information, some of our just social medias in the chat. If you have any questions or comments for us too, anything you wanted to see, just let us know. Because we also too, we do want to know what you guys want, because it was really great support, and we really appreciate the opportunity that we get to do something like this, and it's thanks to you guys.
Yeah, for sure. Nicholas asked, will you guys be doing more recipe than what's in the Necro Nom Nom Nom? So Jenny has a bunch of Necro Noms picked out. Oh,
Not Coke Zero.
it's not Coke Zero, but the fund replenishes. Thank you, Karafa. Thank you, all of you guys, for your eternally awesome support. So Jenny, what do you think? You have several she has an outline of reasonable recipes to do with the Nom Nom Nom. But would you do some other various things if the cooking show,
Yeah, I can always, because I also have a certain level of culinary things where you can also, because most of the recipes in the book as well are just simple recipes adjusted. Like I think the first video we do like a simple appetizer recipe, just like a different format. So I also have another couple different recipes that even I use. Like if you guys wanted to know the secret to some D20 cookies, those are fun.
Yes.
Things like those.
Yes, they do. You guys want to know about D20 cookies. So I think the answer is a likely yes, especially now that we've figured out the production side of things. Having gotten the first video in the can, we learned while we were up there how to do some new stuff that we haven't really done, and so I think it's possible. And I think it's not only that, but I'm just gonna say the footage from the first thing even is awesome. It looks incredible. So we're excited to get that out for you guys. I just want to see. Brittany says, I just want to see students in a very sadistic format every now and then. Like, you've disrespected me by stepping on my shoes and they kill him slowly and painfully. Maybe that could happen. Ooh, Column says, what about a D&D recipe special like troll stew and orc soup? Yeah.
Yeah, I can always expand.
Jenny
it.
might just have to rep that. Yeah, they're down with the D20 cookies, Jenny. Dragon egg surprise. Ooh. The surprise is dying while recovering the dragon eggs. That'd be pretty good. Yeah, so I think between the two groups in season 4 and the Halloween special and the cooking show, I think there's a lot of content for sure in October. But then carrying on, I have more Monster Mondays. Hopefully you guys are benefiting from that. I've got some more table topics coming out, and like I said, the flashback episodes. So we're pretty good on target for having like 3 to 4 videos a week coming out for you guys. So we're super excited, and it's like finally it's all coming together. Yeah, Tarask goulash, Umber Hulk stew, deviled dragon eggs. Yes, those are all good ideas. And yes, thank you, DOD and Scott. Make sure you guys click on that thumbs up button while we're on this stream. That's always good. So, Jenny, I decided that for today, for one of the segments in Feedback Friday today, we would tell D&D stories.
Oh.
So I'm going to tell the story of my very first character. So I was about 5 years old. My brother was in junior high, and he had just learned how to play D&D. And at some point, he taught me how to play D&D. And he basically explained it as like you use your imagination to tell a story. And he made a character on a note card for me. And the character's name was Pink Floyd, and he was a human cleric. And he wrote everything out for me. And then he simplified it. So everything was just D6s. And then he kind of ran a game for me, and he's like, all right, there's a monster coming at you. What do you do? And I was like, I attack it. And, and then I had healing spells. So it was like his own home brewed custom basic D&D. But that's how I learned. And a few years later, I started playing with a group of neighbor kids around the block. And my first character in that group, and imagine like 10 kids in a basement. It was a stupid amount of people, right? And the oldest brother, my friend's oldest brother, was a DM. And then the neighbor kids were there, and I was one of the kids there. And like we were the young kids that were trying to play D&D with the older kids. So they let us play, but basically they just killed us off. So like this is the story, right? The whole group is in a city, and they're going to embark on this massive journey on this ship, okay? And at the time, some of you guys might remember the movie Clash of the Titans, okay? So like we were very influenced by Clash of the Titans because it was kind of a D&D-ish movie. So they decided that their party was going to go on this ship and sail off to this island where they'd, have adventures and fight monsters and have treasure. And we were trying to join the party, but they pulled up the gangplank so we couldn't get on the ship. So we came up, me and my friend Jim were like, well, we run to a bridge that goes over the river, and we wait for the ship to go by, and we'll jump off to get onto the bridge. So the DM's like, okay, go ahead and make a roll. So we both rolled, we both failed, and he's like, you guys fall into the river and you drown. So we were dead. So then rather than making up new characters, we just handed each other our character sheets, and then we instantly repopped as characters. So the ship's further down the river, and we're like, we try to run to the next bridge. We ran to the next bridge. Same thing. We roll, we both fail our rolls, we both fall into the river and drown. Hand our characters back. Finally, the ship's about to get off the harbor. We make the bridge jump. Finally, we make our rolls. So now, somehow by back and forth, we're back to our original character sheets, right? And we're on the ship. And the DM narrates this whole journey, and it's epic, and there's like an attack from sea monsters, but we defeated them, and we go through like horrible weather and big waves, and finally the ship arrives at the island. And we get off the ship, and we're walking onto the island. And I think this adventure might have been stuff, and we hear a sound, and it's a dinosaur, like a T-Rex basically, comes over the mountains. And we all roll initiative, and like everybody else like takes defensive positions or starts like throwing spears or shooting arrows at it. and me and Jim like have no weapons, no armor, so we just run. And the T-Rex sees us running, and he runs by and eats us in like one gulp. So the moral of the story is never give up and never surrender, because even though we were mercilessly killed repeatedly, we still had fun. And that was one of my earliest recollections of D&D. All right, Jenny, one short D&D story or a scene from D&D.
One short D&D story. I remember because Jordan DMs for me and DJ and Andrea kind of regularly, and we used to play with our other friend Riley. And you're wondering, oh, well, you're all playing. Why doesn't he do D&D with you guys? It's because he has a very bad habit of D&D players. And yeah, there's a lot of different kinds of players, and there's pros and cons between how excited you can be and whatever. But the problem that we had is that every 5 seconds or so, they're the kind of player that always wants to reference something. As in, oh, Jordan would roll initiative, and oh, there's a suit of armor attacking you. What do you do? And instead of using he's like a human bard, instead of using any of his abilities, oh, I saw this one thing in an anime where, like, I want to flip off the wall and, like, backstab them. And this
Every move has to be some epic stylized thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a little bit of that's good, right? But I know what you mean. It's kind of annoying when somebody goes too far with that. And that's a great discussion topic. You know, how far is too far? It's a good thing to describe what your character is doing. You know, if you say, okay, like if you legitimately have a character who's some kind of a swashbuckler with proficiency in acrobatics, it makes sense that you would describe like, I wall run up the side and I vault back over and I flip and stab down with my rapier. Okay, that's awesome. But like if your character is a half-orc cleric with no acrobatics and you keep trying to do things that your character reasonably would not try to do because they're not competent enough to do them, maybe that's annoying.
Yeah, and I'm all for more details and more things to add to the RP, but the problem more so became that the amount that he had to input, and it wasn't just with battle either. It would be like we'd come across some enslaved drow in a dungeon, and he's like, I'm going to do a slave uprising. Just, how are you going to do that? He's like, I don't know, I just want to do a slave uprising. It's like, yeah, you can try. And it just became more so. We spent half an hour of real life time, half an hour to an hour of him. We were in a dungeon, and Jordan had designed it so that it was magical, so the way you went wasn't exactly the way you could come back. It was a labyrinth of sorts.
Okay.
And with the urchin background, he had a pet rat. It wasn't intelligent, it wasn't a familiar, it was just a rat that was with him.
Yes.
And he decides, all right, I send my rat Remy through the tunnel, and he's going to find the path. And she's like, well, you can send him in, but you have no way of communicating to him. He's like, no, it's fine, I have a message. She's like, all right, you can try. He sends the rat down the tunnel, it goes into the darkness, and he sends the rat a message. Remy, where are you? The rat can't send a message back. It's not intelligent at all. And he spent half an hour of real game time, and we all had to sit around the table. None of us had anything. We weren't even with him.
And that is like Mushu just said, when you detract from the fun of others as opposed to adding to the whole group's fun on a regular basis, that's when it's a problem. And that's exactly it. Here's another D&D story. True story. The first time I ever ran a game at GaryCon, I was running this game. I got everybody up to speed before we even sat down because I sent emails in advance. I gave them directions about how to build their characters. I then let them build their characters. They sent me their characters. I gave them custom background information that only their character would know so that before we even got to the convention, they knew what this adventure was going to be about. They knew about the world, the context. And I got this great group of people, 5 people, and one seat was open. The person didn't show up. And I was like, oh, maybe they were partying late last night or whatever, So we start playing. And we're like a good half an hour into playing. And this guy like hastily runs up and he sits down. And he's like, sorry, my last game ran late. And I was like, oh, cool. Are you so-and-so? And he's like, yeah. I was like, do you have your character? He's like, yeah, his name's Hark. Hark the Herald. Like Hark the Herald Angels sing. I was like, oh, you didn't make a character. He's like, yeah, it's fine. I got it up here. I'll just write it down. So then I'm like, this is going to be interesting. So this guy rolls up late, makes up some half-assed character at the last minute, and immediately starts like being intrusive into the game. Like he's cracking jokes all the time. And it's not like, I'm not against fun, but like that's not the vibe that we had going. And he's real disruptive, and he's like he has to be the center of attention. Like he's jumping into everything like Leroy Jenkins. Like there's no tact, there's no strategy, there's no like, what do you guys think we should do? He's just like, I run up and slash it like that. So for me as a DM, it was a juggling act. It was a test. It was a crucible, because I was like, how do I not let this dude ruin everybody else's fun? So I had to constantly redirect him, and I was like juggling him and keeping him busy while making sure everybody else at the table got equal attention and had an input in things. But I'm pretty sure like towards the end of the and things worked out. Like I kept it going, you know. But the last 10 minutes of the game, there's this major encounter with the big bad end guy, and Hark the Herald decides that he's going to take this mysterious orb and swallow it. And then he explodes, and out from his body, there's this creature. So this player was happy to do that because he was the center of attention. And he didn't care if his character died because it was a one-shot and a convention. But everybody else that was in the campaign, they were able to enjoy the campaign for the actual story that I created. Whereas this guy was just there to roll dice and kill shit. So, and that was literally the only time I've ever run a game at a convention where I had that kind of like disruptive player. And it's a reality that whether it's with your friends and they're, just rushing into things with no tact, or they're constantly monopolizing time by describing every little detail of what they're doing, that is a thing that players need to be aware of at the table. Good story, Jenny. That was an excellent discussion topic.
Yeah.
Yes. It's funny that you guys mentioned Tony, because Tony can be a little bit of that, but what's funny is that Tony actually drives the storyline a lot and doesn't always monopolize things, but he is pretty descriptive.
I think a lot of it has to do with the genuine player's intentions, because there
Yeah.
is a certain respect behind it, and if you can respect your DM and what they're trying to do, and everybody else's respect everyone else in your party's time, then if you want to be a little more descriptive or a little more, I think Tony does have a genuine respect. You can tell, but certain
Right.
players like that, they're only about their time, and they show no respect to everyone else that's there engaging in the game.
Right. Good point. And I also think that that can happen in any role-playing game system too. It's not just D&D. I mean, that's happened for me in like vampire games, like tremendously so, where like you're sitting in the other room playing video games for an hour because one player is monopolizing the storyteller's time with some intricate plot that like frankly could have been written out in a note and handed to the person instead of having to like role play every element of it. So yeah, that's a good discussion topic. All right, so DOD asks, was it deliberate that you removed the Coke Zero label? No, that's it wasn't deliberate. I don't think I would get sued by Coca-Cola for having a product shot. Like a bard that always has to use a dart. Yeah, kind of. I mean, that's a little bit Tony. The knee dart. Okay, Greater Good says, I have a player that had to haggle with every trader, everyone. And not like, can I get a 10 gold discount on this 500 gold object? More like, could I rather pay 10% of what you want? Yeah, so that's a good example of that kind of stuff where like, they're not really doing it for the benefit of the game. There, and it doesn't really add to the experience of other people. Like, I'm cool with a little bit of haggling because your character's into role playing like that, especially if it fits the character, but not if it's just because the player is like bored. And maybe part of that's on the DM. Maybe there's times where the DM just has to shut that stuff down and be like, no, he pulls a crossbow out and puts it in your face and says, get out of my story, you've insulted me.
Yeah.
You know.
And I would argue, I know you've mentioned a lot about it being part of the character, and there are certain things where even if they might be a little different, you don't always have to do, well, like the story's going this way and the rest of the party's doing this, so I have to follow this. You can defer.
Yeah.
But you can't just use it's my character as an excuse for everything.
Right. That's a good point. Because if a player makes a character who's a dick, like, that's not fun for anyone. I get it if your character is ornery or grumpy, that's a common like character trait. I have a dwarven barbarian and he's a grumpy and he's a drunk. Fine. But he's got to have some redemptive quality about him. Otherwise it's just a one-dimensional character, It's an axe with an attitude. But I should write that down. Axe with an attitude. That's primo right there. But so yeah, that's a good point. Like if the character's grumpy, but they're also like fiercely loyal to their friends and they live by a code of honor. Okay, but then there's more substance to them. But if they're just a dick who always just starts stuff and they're like, I'm an agent of chaos, don't make that character. Like, you're in a group with people playing a game. You can't make the lone wolf who's an agent of chaos who always just is there to screw things up.
Yeah, like
if you want to do that, go play an online game and get killed.
Yeah, it's like the chaotic stupid flaw.
Yeah.
Like there's plenty of characters that I've seen people build that are chaotic neutral and work fine. But if you make a character like that, D&D is a multiplayer game.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna just steal from the party and do like things that irritate people, then
Trodet says, go to Reddit RPG horror stories. I'm sure that there are plenty of those. But I think the thing that we all share, if you've played for any amount of time, you've probably already run into that kind of stuff. If you play in pickup games at game stores or Adventurers League games or conventions, you've probably run into like toxic players, people who are just there to F up the game. And you want to avoid those people. I'll say it. Nobody's perfect, but at the same time, like, if you can't reason with those people and talk to them and just be like, hey man, could you just chill with this, like, chaotic, stupid kind of stuff and like play the game for real? If they don't want to abide, then they bounce. They're out, Now, in my convention story, I didn't have to kick the guy out because I basically set him up for something that I knew he would take the bait on. Like, I knew the minute that I gave the right clues about eating the thing that he would assume that would be something powerful. And being who he was, he couldn't resist it. So he did it. And his body blew up and he died. So he loved it because he died a glorious big death and he had all the attention. And I think the other players loved it because the last 10 minutes of the game, he literally didn't have anything to say. So they can actually finish out the story. So it wasn't perfect, but you do your best to make that kind of stuff work.
yeah.
Let's see.
Virginia was also telling me she used to play, because there's another area in our school, an after school like club sort of, where you can go play D&D. It's like in our corral. But when she was playing there, her and her sister, and it's a group of random people, you don't really know them, she did have somebody who's like playing the same way, and in a dungeon there was like a cursed shield. When you lifted it, like it shot. So it kept shooting party members, and everybody told him, like, in character and out of character, can you please put that down? Mm-hmm. And in character and out of character, he's like, no, I don't feel like it. And ended up killing, almost TPKing the entire party.
Wow.
Just for that.
Yeah, I think that when you have that kind of person in the group, it's honestly like it's a cover for what their real baggage is. Like, that's somebody who desperately is seeking attention. And I'm not going to say that I've never been that person. When I was a kid, of course, yeah, we all did dumb, stupid things. Like, I could tell you about elementary school and middle school D&D campaigns where we purposely just did stupid things. But I think as you get older and maybe more mature and you really want to invest in your role-playing game experience, you try to avoid that kind of stuff. And you make a character that's a little more multi-dimensional, a little more fleshed out, and you hope that everybody else in the group each brings that to the table. And honestly, if everybody does, you're going to have a great game. No matter what the chemistry is, you'll have a great game. Good. Mushu says, I invited a friend as a guest character when the party was tracking a green dragon. They tried to strike a deal with the dragon for power, turned on the rest of the group, and killed the party's ranger. Wow. That is brutal. That is brutal. Start out small. Oh, Jacinto made the Axe of Attitude. Wisdom, DC 10. Fail, and you attack with disadvantage as the axe comes to life and insults you. That's funny. Good one, my friend. That is funny. Sam asks, does anyone have a good 10 plus level campaign for a new DM? Also, Bill, you are a super good DM. Well, thank you, Sam. I would say, have you guys played through like the published D&D stuff, like Curse of Strahd or Waterdeep Dragon Heist or any of that stuff?
Not a lot. No.
Okay. So I would say if you're a new DM, the published source books from Wizards of the Coast are, I think they're good because you can scale them. You could start off at a lower level and work through mid-level or high level in that campaign source book. And they give you basically all the materials you need. Now, if you're specifically looking for something that's 10th level or higher, what you do is, you find that source book that's going to have the kind of adventure that you're looking for, and you kind of skip through until you find the right kind of challenge ratings that they're referencing in the adventures. And I'll do Curse of Strahd as an example, right? So this is based on the classic Ravenloft campaign setting, where you have Count Strahd von Zarovich, which is basically, Dracula. So, in that kind of a campaign setting, if you wanted to start off 10th level, you'd come in screaming with the more powerful undead encounters, right? You'd be dealing with wraiths and ghosts and vampires and that kind of stuff. And, maybe you expand the adventure options so that as the party explores Barovia, some of the areas that are more geared for lower level, you just take out the low level encounters and put in like higher level challenges, or a lot of mid level challenge things, So if there's goblins in one area, replace the goblins with shadow demons or some other kind of creature. And that way you could take almost any setting and make it the level range or tier that you need it to be. Yeah, Waterdeep, the Waterdeep supplements that have come out so far, Dungeon of the Mad Mage and Waterdeep Dragon Heist, I think you could use those in conjunction and build a endless campaign from levels 1 through 20. It's kind of made for you to be able to explore that world.
The reference books too, those source books were another thing that, hypothetically, if the live stream does go well, we could do like a stream of it or so.
Yeah, and that's something that we've talked about too, is having, I think it might be of interest to you guys, and I know Beecher started running Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I think it would be interesting for you guys to see a campaign of the published material run by and played by the students. And I'm not necessarily sure if it'd be the Waterdeep stuff or something else, but and now they have, the higher level stuff with Descent into Avernus. But maybe something starting off low level and working your way up through mid level. maybe that would be kind of a cool show to do. So it just comes down to availability and time. If the right people are available and we have the time to do it, I think it'd be something we'd definitely do. I mean, I think you guys would be interested in seeing it, and I think they would be interested in running it. So Craig says, I was a GM. The story I came up with was in a haunted house. Each room was haunted by a different ghost that needed a problem solved within that room. No fighting, and the players loved it. Yes. A lot of times, mystery, puzzles, riddles, traps, that kind of stuff can be just as exciting as boatloads of combat. I always try to have a balance between those things. And sometimes I lean too much on the story and there's not enough combat and encounters, so people get a little bored. But I think it's important to balance that stuff out too. Nicholas Holmes asks, does that mean Strahd was touched when he was young? Apparently the Count had been mishandled by his Turk captors. Maybe. Could be. Yes, Greater Good asks, did you hear about Descent into Avernus problem? The first thing that happens is that Zoj recruits you for a mission, and if you don't oblige, he can execute them on the spot. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I don't play published works, is because I feel like a lot of the published works in source books and also like in convention content or Adventurers League stuff is very like a choose your own adventure, kind of pigeonhole, railroaded storylines. I prefer open sandbox style, but I do also think that for people to learn how to process a storyline in a role-playing game, it can be good to watch those games. I've never felt compelled to do that, but like if the students wanted to run their own stream with, one of the supplemental books, that's totally on the table. I would be down with that. Bye, Nat Cat. We love you. So, as time is ticking away, I wanted to go through a couple things. So, in the topic of games that are not D&D, I brought out 3 books today because they represent 3 different kind of eras. And I think when I say represent eras, these eras involve both mechanics and game design, but also like style. Okay, so this is the Star Wars source book from West End Games, and it was an exciting release because it had the Star Wars properties. It had some color in there. And back in 1987, this book might have just been the absolute business. So a cool part of it is that, there's a mixture of like stills from the movie in the book, but also like illustrations. Largely black and white with some kind of blue tone blueprint style stuff in here for the ships. But this represents a period in time where role-playing games were still very much influenced by tactical wargaming. This game is what I would call medium crunchy. So there were a lot of rules that you had to know to be able to play this game effectively. And here's just an example with the spacecraft performance data chart. Just for one ship, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different fields of descriptive mechanics. Okay? Your hyperdrive multiplier, your sublight speed, maneuver, hull, main weapon, fire control, damage, secondary weapon, fire control, damage, shield rating. That's an incredible amount of statistics for a ship. And then the actual stat blocks for like a character were also pretty huge. You had 6 basic ability scores, but underneath each one of those was a significant amount of skills. And like I said, this is at a time when games were a little more crunchy because they were still very influenced by tactical wargaming. So here's an example. They have under strength, they have brawling as its own skill, and then climbing and jumping as another skill, lifting as another skill, and swimming as another skill. So that's 3 different skills under that strength attribute that now in D&D would just fall under athletics. But at the time in game design, they really felt like it was important enough to differentiate and have separate skills for all those different tasks. They didn't think of it as like athletics allows you to do all these tasks. They thought of the tasks as the skills themselves, as the proficiencies themselves. So kind of an interesting take. So they have all these different kind of stat blocks. Here's the Millennium Falcon.
And really, there's nothing inherently wrong with having all this information. I'm sure plenty of people can play with it, but I know, like 5th edition especially, they try to minimize a lot of the rules and things you have to learn so that it's more open for new players and it doesn't really look as, like, alienating.
Right. And then, they have the different races, so you can kind of see how the races get certain amounts of die. And this was a dice pool game, so you had D6s, and everything was basically based on that mechanic of a number of D6 dice that you were able to use, or that you got for your different ability scores. General equipment. So the funny thing is like, I remember playing this, but if you asked me to run a game of this right now, I would have no idea how to do it. I would have no idea how to run the rules for this. But, here's Han Solo's character stat block. See, so look, like Blaster, 9D plus 1. But he's not as good at Grenade or melee parry. But I mean, look at all those different skills, differentiated skills that nowadays would be covered under like one roll. So it was really just a different time. I don't want to say that systems now are better. They're definitely more streamlined, but there are still plenty of people who prefer kind of crunchy rule sets because they feel they're more accurate or more realistic by having more specificity and more details. And maybe, I don't know, maybe I agree with that. Maybe there's some truth in that. You're more exact, you're more refined in your design when you have more specific stuff. Look at that, Jesus. Obi-Wan Kenobi has a lightsaber rating of 11 dice.
Wow.
Even as an old man, 60 plus.
So has 12 dice for languages.
Yeah. So this book in 1987 was $14.95. Yeah. So anyway, that's that book. All right, then Shadowrun. This is 3rd edition, so don't get excited. I know some of you guys really like Shadowrun, like 1st and 2nd edition. This is 3rd edition. So it was $30 when I bought it. In what year? What year was this game produced? 1998. Okay. So for those who don't know, Shadowrun is, I think in the gaming genre, it would be considered cyberpunk, but basically it's science fiction fantasy, sci-fi fantasy. And the premise is an apocalyptic world event has reawakened the fantasy races. So elves and dwarves and ogres and trolls and orcs have returned, as has magic and dragons and other kind of supernatural fantasy things. And at the same time, Native American Indian tribes had a great ghost dance that reawakened their magical abilities. their spiritual magical abilities. And blend that all in with a near futuristic cyberpunk vibe, and you have Shadowrun. The idea of which is that Shadowrunners are basically freelance operatives who go on missions, typically working for corporations or against corporations, assassinations, espionage, infiltrations, all-out war, what have you. And there were different kind of basic classes that you can make. And if you flip through this, Jenny, you'll notice that most of it's black and white, with the exception of these dope full-color character templates. I always remember that picture of the adept, because he was like this tattooed, like, uber monk tightrope walking on some, like, power lines. Yes, Jacinto says, half-orc street samurai for the win. That's right. Riggers. Riggers were basically robotics nerds, and not just robotics, like attack drone level things. They could control vehicles. They could control, little drones, little robots, all sorts of cool stuff. So yeah, I mean, and this, Shadowrun came out in the late 80s and proliferated during the 90s. And Jenny, true fact, did you know that the company that came up with Shadowrun is FASA, the FASA Corporation? FASA. And that game company started in none other than Chicago.
Wow.
I actually met Jordan Weissman, the founder of FASA and creator of Shadowrun and many other games, on a commercial shoot for his game Crimson Skies. There was a console-based computer game version of Crimson Skies that came out in the late 90s, and we were on the shoot for the cutscenes for that game. So I don't know when that game would have come out, maybe 1999 or 2000, but we shot all the cutscenes for that video game. This is back when, like, video games, you'd be playing an RPG video game and, like, you'd get to a certain point and then they'd show you the video of the cutscene.
Oh, yeah.
Like back when video games were on CD-ROMs. So, yeah, that was kind of exciting. He was a cool dude. So, yeah. Shadowrun was, I think, a little less crunchy than Star Wars, but in a lot of similar ways, it wasn't all that different. It's still operated by rolling dice pools. And there were still a ridiculous amount of skills that were very specific. Instead of being kind of streamlined or consolidated, they had very specific skills. So, yeah, if you read this off, active skills: bike, biotech, car, computer, demolitions, electronics, etiquette, heavy weapons, pistols, stealth, conspiracy theories. There's a knowledge skill for conspiracy theories. Cybertech, engineering, English, Japanese, matrix topography, mega corporate research, metallurgy, and physics. So, I mean, there are very super specific kind of skill sets. And again, one way to look at that is, oh, that's awesome. I can truly customize my character. Yes. But that's also a lot of stuff that you have to have in there. Yes, of course, you guys have pointed out many good things in the chat. I will try to address them. Sorry, gotta get caught up in the chat. So Nicholas points out some information about the average weight of a arming sword and a longsword. Palladium, Shalendor, good reference. Palladium Fantasy is a game that I played. Also pretty crunchy. Dark Skull, I have not seen Shadowrun 5th edition, so I can't vouch for that. I did play second and third edition Shadowrun. I've never gone beyond that though. Let's see. Wild die could increase skill as you kept rolling sixes. Yes, that's true. I do remember that facet. So when you had your dice pools, if you rolled a 6, you got to add that as a success and re-roll it again. And it was like exploding dice. As long as you kept rolling 6s, those 6s would count and you can re-roll them. So you could have some incredible roll where you know, instead of having 3 successes, you have like 9 because you just kept rolling 6s, which did add a lot to the excitement value. All right, do you have to go?
Yeah.
Okay. Say bye to Jenny, everybody.
I do like this Monday we can do like 12 to 3.
Okay. Send just confirm it with me. Like send me a reminder
Okay, I'll email you.
and make sure that like all your group knows and that they're all good.
Yeah.
Okay.
This break brought to you by Coke Zero.
This break brought to you by the Coke Zero Fund and by Carafa going to the machine. Dragons were reborn into the world. Yes. No corp is the best corp. God, you guys are on fire today in this chat. I love hanging out with you guys.
Make sure you like this video
Yes. Carafa reminds you to give a big thumbs up to the video.
because that makes me feel good when
Because-
you like the video.
That makes Carafa feel good when you like the video.
So thank you.
So thank you.
It boosts my self-esteem.
It boosts my self-esteem. Anything else you want to transmit to me, Dave?
No.
All right. Trying to get 3 family members who have never played before. They may not enjoy the character creation very much. Should I just have them roll stats or make a basic character? That question coming from BP, I would say make them a basic character, but try to think of something that they would personally enjoy. Even if that means that you have 3 people who are rogues or 3 people who are fighters. Because you're right, the character creation process can be a real drag for people who are sitting down and don't have the patience to do that and just want to play a game. Nicholas Holmes, your discussion is not boring. I like your discussion. It would be awesome to see the cast play Cyberpunk, Shadowrun, or Gamma World. Yes, Dark Skull, it would be. If I had to pick between those 3, my guess is that they would probably want to play Cyberpunk, maybe? But I don't know. That's a good question. Maybe I'll kind of do a general poll with the students and see what their overall interest is and kind of gauge that. All right, I'm finally getting caught up in the chat. Or if I happen to have a longsword, can half sword gripping the blade in one hand to add accuracy so I can get those gaps in the armor? I'm not really sure about that question. I don't have a good answer for you. Because I don't know. Shalendor says, there are so many fun RPG systems out there. This is going to bring me to my concluding comment. Oh, Rymor is challenging me. Stand by. Bill, I'm having difficulty with character leveling. How do you determine your milestones and when you give the students level ups? That is a great question. Several ways that you can do that. You can do your milestones based on story arc. That's typically what I do. Just calculating experience for killing things is not enough. You have to think about social encounters. You have to think about exploration. Have they found new places? Have they discovered new elements of the mysteries or secrets that you've revealed slowly through the game? And I try to quantify that in a sense to balance out the amount of time they've played. sometimes you play a session and nothing gets done, and that's okay. Don't feel compelled to award experience for that. So I think the biggest thing about milestones is it should measure progress in some fashion. A mixture of progress in storyline development, in character development, in solving mysteries, in uncovering clues or answering questions, in social interaction. All of that factors into milestones. And I think there was a time when I was younger where we were all about, hack and slash and power gaming. I mean, we were kids. When we were kids, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, we kept ledgers of the experience that we earned. I mean, like, it was detailed with the date of the session and the value of the number of experience and what was killed and where it was. Like, we were so focused on the math that we often didn't care about the story. And as I got older, the story became important. Now, this is a perfect segue in your questioning, because so what about the dual wielder's offhand whip? That's just finesse, not light, or is it? I don't know, because I don't have a book in front of me. I think whips are considered finesse and light. I'm not sure. White Wolf is a company that came out with a game called Vampire. Actually, they came out with Vampire, Werewolf, Mage, Changeling, Wraith, World of Darkness, okay? And their system was different at the time that it came out than any other game I'd played. They used dots, and those dots equated to a D10. And you had a pool of dots in your skills. You had pools of dots in your abilities. When you wanted to do anything, you took the relevant ability score and paired it with the relevant talent, skill, or knowledge. You rolled that many dots worth of D10s at a certain difficulty rating determined by the storyteller. So typically the default was difficulty 6. And the number of 6 or higher rolls that you had determined the number of successes. Streamlined, smooth, easy. It was no longer about killing things and adding up your kill tally in experience. It was about role-playing. Now, Vampire was the beginning of my birth into White Wolf, but really the game that tweaked my brain was this one, Mage. Now, this is not the first edition. I think this is the second edition book. If memory serves, the first edition was a soft cover. Well, I know the first edition of Vampire was a soft cover book. Their books also changed how games looked. Like, after this, like, D&D upped its game with the color and the glossy pages, the artwork, the borders, the like in-character narrative chapter headers. All that stuff was amazing, right? Like, you'd have, here's like the beginning of a chapter, so you have this cool illustration, and then you'd have this in-character chapter header. The cigarette's ash fell unbidden to the grayish sidewalk, only to be quickly swept away by a gust of wind. David dropped the remainder of the piece and ground it under his boot. Looking down the street, past the thronging people and the sputtering lights, he growled out his protest, muttering, "I still think it's a dumb idea. We know your rep, Mark, but that doesn't mean that you're the fucking bee's knees." Mark chuckled, and a winning smile split his weathered face. "Christ, Dave, you could beat me for the bitter cynicism department. Seriously, though, it'll work especially because nobody would think we'd have the balls, and because Catherine here can turn their assets into ours." Hands on her hips, Catherine shot David a challenging look. "Come on," she said. "You got a better way?" David refused to meet her eyes. Finally, he turned back to face the two, looking down at his boots. "Crap," he grumbled. "I don't have to tell you how much I hate this." "Good," grinned Mark. "When I'm right, I'm right. Now, that means that you're in. Let's get down to business. Anyway, I'm not going to read the whole thing. But there were these cool kind of narrative blocks integrated into the book. When people ask me what I think the best gaming system is, my first response is that mechanics don't matter. Now, I know that's a little bit clickbaitish, that it's a little bit misleading, but I really do believe that you could play any genre in any game system with the right amount of imagination and effort. I could play any role-playing game with a D6, honestly. Because role-playing, first and foremost, should be about the R-O-L-E, the role. Second is the R-O-L-L, the roll. But I will say that when White Wolf came out with the magic system for Mage, it was very different from anything I'd ever seen. The Magi and Mage don't have spell lists. You have certain levels of control over different spheres that allow you to create certain effects, magical effects, which basically is the equivalent of like a spell in another game. But there's no list. There's some sample ideas, but there's no list. So that what that did was it created this situation where you had to discover the power. You, as the player, using your character, had to create your own magical effects. You had to use your imagination. And I loved this because it was like, it was a buffet for me. I could let my creativity go and just rage out on spell effects and just come up with cool, innovative things that my character could do. Now, there are limits. There were limits based on your character's belief system, their paradigm, how they perceived magic working for them, their level of control within the different spheres. But in a large fashion, unlike any other game, there were no limits in terms of the effects that you could imagine that were within your purview of control. So when people say, like, what system is the best for Magic? This is and always will be the best. Until I find something else, this is and always will be the best. And I will tell you that, you know, for as much as I love D&D, I think gaming in those White Wolf games is a different kind of experience from any other role-playing game I've played, and I've played a fair amount. So that is the trilogy of old books today on Feedback Friday, everybody. Before we conclude, I will try to touch base with y'all on the Chizat. Dark Skull says, I came back to RPGs because of the first season of this show. Awesome, Dark Skull. Thank you. Robert Dogs. Yes, my friend. I had a lot more books on my bookshelf, but I sold many of them in the 90s and early 2000s, unfortunately. I also had boxed sets that would be worth hundreds of dollars right now had I not sold them stupidly. So we all make bad mistakes, and one of my worst mistakes was selling many, many, many old books and box sets of games that I thought I'd never play. And lo and behold, I'm glad that I didn't sell all of them because I still have some gems. And you know what? Even if I never play Shadowrun again, I could read through this and still use it for inspiration. Same thing with this Star Wars book. If I was looking for something to help me craft something that's a little more complex for a sci-fi game, I could use this as a reference book. So I guess the moral of the story is this isn't just a nostalgia run. It is, I'm not going to lie. I mean, a lot of this is just nostalgia. I keep it around because I have great memories. But it's not all nostalgia. A lot of times it's inspiration or influence. It's research. You can use these materials. And when people play D&D and they ask that question like, hey, I've got a bunch of 3rd edition blah, 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 or I've got old 1st edition AD&D things, are those still usable? Yes, they are. You can kit bash old stuff and make it work for whatever edition you're playing in it. And or you could use it just for inspiration and homebrew your own thing. Or you can try to do a direct, conversion from whatever edition to another edition. So I would say, the moral of the story is keep those things if you can afford to, and if you have space to. Keep those things because, first of all, you never know when you might want to go back and play a game with old friends or with new friends. Play an old game with new friends. But second, you can still use those things for inspiration and as resources. And I think that's one of the reasons why I keep them around in addition to the nostalgia trips, because they're just kind of interesting. They're kind of cool to have. Bradley Hall, you should still find a D&D group because you know what? Even sometimes it's good to get your fix of playing a game, even if it's not the best chemistry in the group or the most in-depth stories. Sometimes it's still fun. But while we're on that kick, let me just remind all of you that in February, towards the end of February, we will be once again hosting LionCon here in the Chicago suburbs. So if you're anywhere in the Midwest or you just have a stupid amount of time and money and you want to come out to visit us, we'll be here with lots of games for y'all to play. Yes, many of you guys, like me, have great, vast collections of books and stuff. I foolishly made the mistake of selling many of my books for dumb reasons that I will not disclose publicly here. But let me just say that, when you're in your 20s and you're desperate for cash, sometimes you make mistakes and you sell things. So I sold a lot of my cool old books, but I'm glad that I have the ones I have, and I'm definitely big on keep what you have because you never know when you might refer to it. And here's a concrete example. When Tomb of Annihilation came out, I was so happy that I still had my original copy of Tomb of Horrors because I could go back to it and reference it. And it was fun to look back at that. And then I started to see things as an adult that I had not seen when I was a kid. And so, again, you can look back on things many years later and think, well, I'm never going to play, 3rd edition Shadowrun, but you might still reference something from it. So you never know when these books are going to be a good resource. All right. I am going to have to say thank you, first and foremost, you guys, for joining me on another Feedback Friday. And thank you to all of my patrons. We had a great month. Last month, we welcomed a bunch of new patrons to the fold. And your support is the reason why I am able to continue to produce a ton of new stuff. So, we are at a point now where we're producing more than double the amount of content on the channel. And that's in large part because of the support of my patrons and because of you guys helping to spread the word and subscribing and supporting the channel and watching the videos. All of that makes a difference. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you guys take the time this weekend to watch episode 1 and check out the Vixens, and then be excited next week to see Jenny and Jordan's new group in action. They also have their own original opening sequence, which I think is pretty cool because it features Jordan's original character art. So you guys will see all 5 of their party fully arted up, and it's going to be pretty cool. So in the meantime, for those of you who have a long weekend, enjoy your long weekend, and we will see you guys next week. And even though I won't be at school on Monday, Monster Monday will be dropping. So more Halloween spooky Monster Monday coming at you. And thanks as always, you guys. Much love, peace to you and all of your people.